After enjoying a cozy breakfast with my family, I was startled by a call from an unknown number. When I answered, I was met with a voice that was both arrogant and smug. Yes, it was my ex-husband. It's been years since he left behind our family. He began boasting about the luxurious and successful life he's been living since abandoning us. I tried to block him and sever any remaining ties, but his words pierced me like arrows, inflicting fresh pain through this relentless intrusion. I turned to the one safe harbor I knew. My current husband, a powerful and influential man. Not only does he share my love, but he also holds the CEO position of the company my ex-husband once owned. With determination, I asked him to take the reins of this nightmare so we could find peace. As a woman strengthened by the bonds of my new family and my resolve, it was time to face this past. Now, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. And if you enjoy our content, please support the channel and join us as we see this exciting story through to the end. My name is Bridget, a 40-year-old woman who's experienced love twice. My second marriage has been an emotional roller coaster. The first chapter of my marriage story was marked by an unexpected event. Aaron, my ex-husband, and I were like two young birds flying through our high school years together. We were the typical couple. He was an athlete, and I was a cheerleader, enjoying every moment we spent together. Aaron was my first love, and I was willing to do the impossible to keep him by my side forever. We planned a future together and even considered attending the same college. But at 19, during our sophomore year of college, the news of an unplanned pregnancy turned our lives upside down. My family disapproved of our relationship, and my mother constantly warned us about the hardships we'd face. Ignoring her warnings, we kept moving forward with high hopes. But after our second child was born, Aaron began acting strangely, leaving me confused and worried. I tried addressing the issue with him, but he became distant and evasive. One day, after returning from a walk with the kids, I was met with an unexplainable emptiness. When I entered our apartment, I realized all of Aaron's belongings were gone. Panic overtook me immediately, and seeing the despair on my children's faces only amplified my emotions. I called him repeatedly, but every call went straight to voicemail. I vividly remember running to my mother's house with my two crying children, trying to hold back my tears and stay strong. When my mother saw me at the door, she looked disturbed as she let me in. "What happened?" she asked. "I think Aaron left me," I answered. "What do you mean?" she asked. "I took the kids for a walk, and when we got home, all his things were gone. I don't know. I couldn't even talk to him. I didn't know if he abandoned me. Lately, he's been acting strange but wouldn't talk to me, and today this happened. You need to calm down," my mother tried to soothe me. "We'll need to wait for a bit. If he doesn't come back, we'll consider divorce, and I'll help you." But I loved him. How could he do this to me and the kids? I poured out my feelings and broke down in tears. "I understand. I want to help you find answers, but we need to move forward. Not to heal the pain, but because you now have two children to raise." My mother was right. In the months that followed, I faced the pain while raising two children who looked so much like their father. Many nights, I cried myself to sleep, but with time, the pain transformed into acceptance. Naturally, the kids had questions about their father. And when they got older, I told them our family's history and everything that happened, with their surprising understanding. We learned to move beyond the pain. My mother became our greatest ally during this process, helping us overcome every adversity. Caring for the kids turned out to be easier than I had imagined doing it alone. Coincidentally, 13 years after parting ways with Aaron, I encountered my now husband, Donald, at a bar. I was attending a friend's birthday party. Since my mother was with the kids, I thought it was a good opportunity to go out and enjoy myself a little. That night, I was genuinely relaxed and enjoyed spending time with friends. We chatted, laughed a lot, and had a great time. At the end of the evening, Donald approached me. For years, my friends had encouraged me to give someone a chance, but the trauma of what happened with Aaron had kept me from trying again. When Donald walked up to me, my friend stepped back and watched from afar as I spoke with him. Donald began by asking if he could buy me a drink. Not one to turn down a free drink, I gladly accepted. We waited for the drinks to arrive and started a conversation. "So, what brings you here?" he asked. "Oh, I'm here to celebrate a friend's birthday with everyone." "That's wonderful. Mind if I buy drinks for everyone? There are 7 of you over there." "Don't worry. I'll win it all back in the next 2 hours anyway." "So, are you rich?" I joked. "You could say that, but I'm not one to brag. I just think it's a nice way to do something special for people." "Well, you're kind of bragging by saying that. Buying drinks for strangers just because I said it's a birthday?" "True, but I have a weakness for beautiful women." "Do you believe everything people say, even if it's a lie?" "Of course, even if you're lying." "No, today isn't really a birthday, but it's a good excuse to celebrate, right?" "Exactly. You should understand that I'm especially weak when it comes to beautiful women. Could you help me out?" If I had a beautiful woman next to me, I might only have eyes for her. Donald calling me beautiful was a big boost to my self-esteem, especially since he was attractive himself. He looked like someone who belonged on the cover of a major magazine. Under the influence of alcohol, I found myself engaging in lighthearted flirtation, something I usually wouldn't do. Being a naturally introverted person, I wasn't sure if it was the drinks or Donald's aura, but I felt comfortable enough to flirt. Before I left, Donald and I exchanged phone numbers, and from then on, we kept in constant contact. It started with texting, then progressed to phone calls whenever we were free or had something funny to share. We also started meeting more often. At first, we met in public places, but over time, we began visiting each other's homes. I still remember my shock when I first stepped into his house. It was a literal mansion. Donald laughed at my reaction and told me to get used to the luxury because it would soon be mine. Donald was very open about wanting to marry me. He repeatedly told me how comfortable he felt with me, more than with anyone else, and it deepened my love for him. Donald was also enthusiastic about having kids. When I talked about Aaron, he was particularly upset, but ever since I shared that with him, he made it a point to show me how much I meant to him. Aaron and Donald were worlds apart. Donald helped me heal and forget my past marriage, and I was deeply grateful to him. We got married after dating for just a year. We held a wedding at a special location and invited only those closest to us. My children were thrilled for me and always said they loved Donald. It was another significant victory in my life. I was moving forward steadily, and all the worries I once had seemed to fade away. Donald helped me care for and educate my children, even though I had told him I'd take on that responsibility alone. Before we even moved in together, he decorated and prepared rooms for the kids. Donald did everything Aaron didn't and more. It was a true healing experience for my little family. Our family grew stronger. Later, Donald and I had children of our own, but he never treated my kids differently. 1 year into our marriage, he proposed the legal adoption of my children, marking another significant milestone for our family. As a larger family, we did everything families do, dining out, taking vacations, and enjoying fun activities together. My career was flourishing, and Donald's company was incredibly successful. There was nothing wrong in my life until one day, without warning, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the line, I heard, "Bridget, don't you recognize my voice?" "It's me, Aaron. How did you get my number?" I just happened to find it and thought I'd call to see how life has been treating you. Bridget, we had a lot of problems. You and I both know we would have divorced eventually anyway. Like it or not, taking care of a woman and 2 kids was a huge expense for me. If I had stayed with you, it would have ruined my future. I wasn't surprised by his words. After all, a man who abandons his family is capable of anything. But I replied, so you chose to leave without saying a word? Yes, I just did what I had to do to avoid the emotional drama. Leaving you was the best thing I could have done for myself. I swear it was the best decision of my life. Are you serious, Aaron? Yes, I married a wealthy woman with kids. But for her money, I was willing to leave the life I had with you and the kids. I'm living the perfect dream life now. So you abandoned the children who needed their father to pursue someone else? The kids? I did what I had to do. It was the only way, wasn't it? Please, Aaron, don't ever call me again. Your ridiculous words are unnecessary. For me and the kids, I hope you'll do that. Goodbye. I was shocked by the audacity of this heartless man who called solely to brag about his new affluent life. Of course, part of me wanted to keep the conversation going. I wanted to find out where he was, just so I could confront him. But at the same time, I was overwhelmed by too many complex emotions to think clearly. After hanging up, I felt a profound pain. Not for myself, but for my children. My poor children grew up without a father during the most important time of their lives because he was too busy playing stepfather to his new wife's children. I understood he had struggled, but what had I expected? When we had our first child, we had just graduated from high school. Where could we have possibly gotten the money to make it work? At the same time, I felt nothing but contempt for him. Clearly, he only showed interest in people who had something to offer him. I decided to block his number, as I didn't want to have any further involvement with him. That chapter of my life was over, and I had no intention of revisiting it. Later that night, I told Donald about what happened. As expected, he was upset but glad I had blocked Aaron's number. We decided to move on from there. A week later, I received another call from an unknown number. It was Aaron again. At this point, I was starting to feel frustrated. He had called again to boast about his luxurious life, talking about an expensive new car he just purchased and how his kids were excelling at school. This time, I felt no need to be polite and responded. Oh, it's great that you're doing well. Now maybe you can finally do the bare minimum. Pay the years of child support you failed to provide for the kids I worked so hard to raise. I wasn't relying on Aaron's money, but he needed to make amends in some way for all that lost time. His audacity to call and brag after so many years, and then to do it again, was unbelievable. Look, Bridget, after all this time, you still need me. You should have learned to stand on your own and earn your own money by now. His cunning tone was infuriating, though unsurprising. I started laughing on the phone and replied, "It's unbelievable that you choose not to take responsibility despite having the money. You didn't leave because you were broke. You left because you lacked character." Then I hung up. But that didn't stop him. He continued calling every week, going on about his expensive purchases. I kept blocking his numbers, but he seemed to use new ones each time. At some point, I stopped answering unknown calls, yet he still called frequently. It seemed he derived some twisted joy from pestering me. One day, while I was stressed at work, I received yet another call from Aaron. "Hey, Aaron, can't you just leave me alone?" "Oh, come on, I'm just making up for lost time." "Well, you're years too late. The kids don't care anymore, and neither do I. Leave me alone. You know you love this, Bridget. I genuinely don't want to hear anything about you or your new life." "Why, are you jealous?" I'm living the life you could never have. I mean, I just got promoted at one of the top media companies. Though angered and irritated, I couldn't get what he said out of my head. At that moment, I was too furious to think straight, so I let it go. Later, upon returning home, I pondered Aaron's behavior and it dawned on me that he had mentioned employment at one of the leading media companies. They were responsible for hiring our city's most talented influencers and journalists. The reason I kept thinking about this was that Donald was the CEO and founder of that company. Aaron was working at my husband's company. I couldn't believe it. Amazingly, the universe seemed to align in my favor. This meant I could not only deal with the man who had been bothering me but also teach Aaron a valuable lesson for abandoning his children. I anxiously waited for Donald to come home. When he returned, I told him everything that had happened that day. Is something wrong? Why do you look so upset, Bridget? No, nothing happened. I just discovered something important. Oh, what's that? Well, Aaron called again. That guy I can't even call human. If I could find a way to catch him, I'd punch him. Well, he might be closer than you think. What do you mean? Well, today he called to brag about his big promotion at your company. You mean, he works at my company? Yes. At first, I couldn't help but think the name of the company sounded so familiar, and then I realized it. You seriously didn't remember the company I created? Look, I was too angry to remember the name. Cut me some slack. Just kidding. Do you want me to fire him? Absolutely. But before that, I was thinking of a way to humiliate him completely. What do you think? Is there any reason not to fire him in the worst possible way? And so, we began crafting the ultimate revenge plan that Aaron would regret for the rest of his life. We decided to wait a few weeks before executing the plan to fire him. A major event was scheduled 2 months later, and, as luck would have it, Aaron was in charge of it. With many important figures set to attend, we planned to ruin his reputation. Over the next few weeks, I found myself able to answer all of Aaron's calls without feeling frustration or anger. Simply knowing I held the upper hand made it easy to smile as I listened to his boasts about his wealth and his accusatory words toward me. This time, though, I made sure Donald recorded those calls. The event was one I would attend. I wanted to witness Aaron's downfall from the throne I'd earned. Donald bought me a beautiful and expensive dress, which I wore. Not wanting Aaron to see me beforehand, I waited in the car until Donald called me in. When Donald made a speech announcing that he wanted to introduce his wife, I entered the venue. I walked onto the stage, and there Aaron was. I watched as his face fell and turned pale the moment he saw me. I smiled at him as I passed by. He pulled out a handkerchief to wipe the sweat off his face. Donald then began praising me, speaking about the impact I'd had on him over the past 7 years and how happy he was to raise the children with me. As Donald's words of admiration for me continued, I saw Aaron sweating even more. I smiled proudly. The crowd applauded me, and Donald's speech shifted in a different direction. He began talking about how I had recently been harassed by my ex-husband. He told the audience how my ex-husband had abandoned me and the children to become the father of another woman's children, simply because of her wealth. But the universe had other plans for him. The crowd was shocked that my ex-husband worked at the same company, and whispers started as people speculated about who he was. Donald asked everyone to settle down, saying he would reveal who it was. Aaron kept glancing at the exit, knowing by now that there was no need for Donald to even say his name. Because he would reveal it himself. Donald pointed at Aaron and told everyone it was him. The crowd erupted again upon learning who it was. Aaron looked as though he was about to leave, but Donald wasn't finished yet. He told everyone he had all the evidence and began presenting it. Aaron froze in place as he listened to everything. Then Donald announced that, because of everything Aaron had done to me, he would no longer be working at his company. As the crowd stood up and applauded Donald and me, we walked off the stage. Aaron was escorted out of the event. Everything else went smoothly afterward. I had achieved my revenge, and nothing was sweeter than watching my ex-husband's downfall. Donald and I enjoyed the event immensely, and I even found someone willing to offer me a position at their company. The day after the event, I received one last call from an unknown number. "Bold of you to call again after what happened last night," I said. "What do you mean?" he replied. "You tricked me," he said. "You're truly a wicked woman. Stop pretending to be dumb. Why didn't you tell me you had remarried and that you were married to my boss? As I've said before, Aaron, I didn't care about you at all. I get it. You should have just stopped harassing me. If you'd known who my husband was and that he was your boss, would you still have done it? Don't twist my words. I'm not twisting anything. You have no moral high ground to demand decency from me, Aaron. Was it decent to abandon your family? If what you did was decent, then I had every right to humiliate you and take away your job. Enjoy your current family, and I hope you find a new job. I didn't do anything. This was all your own doing. If you hadn't called me, your life would have stayed exactly as you wanted it. But you couldn't quietly have your cake and eat it too. You wanted everyone to hear how good that cake tasted. Goodbye, Aaron. Good luck finding a new job. And you'll need money to pay all those years of overdue child support. From now on, you'll be speaking with my lawyer. If you bother me again, I'll sue you." And I hung up. Finally, I felt a sense of release knowing I had taken revenge on Aaron and destroyed every part of his life. I hope Aaron learns to never again interfere with me or my family because it gained him nothing good. Donald and I continued to thrive together, and our children grew up to be wonderful adults. My life was back on track, with no problems and no longer any stress caused by Aaron. At last, I had achieved my revenge and felt lighter than I had in years. My experience was deeply complex, and I know many women go through similar challenges in their lives. Unfortunately, in our youth, we often ignore the advice of those who wish for our happiness, only to experience painful disappointments in the worst way. I hope my story serves as an example to others. Fortunately, I was given new opportunities. I met an amazing man who brought so much help in raising the children I had with my ex-husband. Thank God. Donald was the man who helped me hold my head high again and reach the position I am in now. However, after this event, an unexpected change came to my heart. One morning, I met Aaron's wife on my way back from shopping. She recognized me and approached me apologetically. "Bridget," she began, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry about Aaron's behavior. He deeply regrets it now." Her sincere attitude moved me slightly, but I still couldn't let my guard down. "You don't need to apologize for him. Besides, I find it hard to believe he regrets anything." "No, it's true," she continued. "He's under a lot of mental stress right now. He's lost his job, his credibility, and most of all, he's being crushed by the weight of everything he's done." I was struck by a wave of mixed emotions. Beneath the satisfaction of achieving my revenge, I realized I also felt an emptiness. Our children. She hesitated before continuing. "I would like them to build a good relationship as half-siblings. If possible, could we consider letting them spend time together?" In that moment, I felt something inside me begin to melt. Thinking about the children, I realized there was no need for adult conflicts to ruin their relationships. "Let me think about it." I answered and exchanged contact information with her. That night, I had an earnest discussion with Donald. "I trust your judgment," he said gently. But maybe it's time to start a new chapter. Instead of holding on to revenge or anger, it's time to move forward. Donald's words resonated deeply with me. Indeed, I had achieved my revenge. But perhaps it wasn't an end, it was an opportunity for a new beginning. The following week, I decided to dedicate myself to my career. Using my experiences, I launched a project to support single mothers and women facing challenging circumstances. I also talked with my children. They responded with surprising maturity. "Mom, we're fine," my eldest son said. "We have a real dad now," he added, looking at Donald. Time passed, and 6 months later, we had our first gathering with all the children. Aaron's kids, my kids, and the children I had with Donald. At first, there was some tension, but the children quickly warmed up to each other and began laughing and playing together. Watching that scene, I felt a profound sense of peace. The hatred and anger that had once consumed my heart were quietly, but surely, being healed. I still don't have direct contact with Aaron. However, the anger I once felt toward him no longer dominates my life. Instead, I've found joy in using my experiences to support others who face similar struggles. My life has taken an unexpected direction, but the lessons I've learned along the way have become invaluable treasures. Revenge may bring temporary satisfaction, but true happiness comes from the courage to let go of hatred and build a new future with the people you love. Thank you for watching, and may your life be filled with light.